Good evening, friends. Good evening. Welcome to each member of INTAC and friends of INTAC, and a special warm welcome to our speaker this evening, Dr. Pradeep Chakravarthy. Just a brief about INTAC. The Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage was set up as a non-profit organization in 1984 with a vision to spearhead heritage awareness and conservation in India. INTAC is today recognized as the largest heritage organization in the country with chapters all over in different states. While the ASI looks after the protection of monuments, our focus is to protect India's vast unprotected heritage, which includes the thousands of built heritage sites that we're all familiar with, like the Senate House and the Victoria Public Hall, natural heritage like lakes, rivers, beaches, cultural heritage, what has more recently been acknowledged, intangible heritage, documenting tribes, culture, oral traditions, etc. INTAC, over the decades, has acquired depth of knowledge and expertise in integrating traditional materials with technology while working with heritage. INTAC provides first aid in times of disaster or crisis, as well as undertakes preventive conservation and active restoration. INTAC Chennai chapter's programs, as many of you are aware, over the past few years have encompassed spreading awareness through talks, walks, and workshops, making documentary films, cleaning temple tanks, restoring heritage structures, as well as bringing out a heritage map of Chennai and a guide to the architectural heritage of Madras, which is available at the desk outside, just here. All of which represent some aspect of the rich and varied tapestry of our culture and heritage. Today, Pradeep, please have a seat. Today we focus on a magnificent temple in our state, Nellaiappar. When you think of Tirunelveli, you immediately think of the river Tamrapanni and of course Tirunelveli Halva perhaps. Situated on the banks of Tamrapanni is the sprawling temple complex dedicated to Shiva as Nellaiappar and his consort Kanthimati Amman. The name Nellaiappar itself is derived from Nell, meaning paddy, as you can see in the visual. Spread over a vast 14-acre expanse, the 7th century temple is one of the largest of temple complexes. We are indeed delighted to have with us this evening Pradeep. Pradeep is not at all new to INTAC, having given talks to our members earlier. I have the pleasure, shall we say, of reintroducing Pradeep for the benefit of some in today's audience. Dr. Pradeep Chakravarthy is a historian, author, and behavioral consultant with a passion for making history relevant to modern life. Graduate of the London School of Economics and Jawaharlal Nehru University, he holds a PhD on the role of temples in the socio-economic and political life of medieval Tamil Nadu. With over 2 decades of experience in learning and development, Pradeep has worked using historical insights to drive behavioral change in individuals and businesses, including leading organizations such as TVS, Cognizant, Infosys, and McKinsey. His mission has been to help people understand present and future behavior by learning from the past. He's authored 10 books focused on Tamil Nadu's rich cultural heritage. Tanjavur, A Cultural History, Essays of Uvesa, Amar Chitra Katha on Uvesa, History of South India for Children, etc., etc. His work has been featured in magazines and newspaper articles. Pradeep has appeared as an expert on platforms such as Netflix, History TV, Discovery Channel, and Netflix. Most recently, he has founded Anantya in the Village, a heritage hotel in Alvar Tirunagari, where he conducts immersive heritage tours for children, bringing history to life through experiential learning. I'm sure he'll do it for adults as well. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of visiting the place and it's amazing. Pradeep, we eagerly look forward to you taking us on a journey of the art, epigraphy, architecture, culture, and history of the Nellaiappar Temple. And what can be more appropriate just ahead of Shivaratri? Welcome, Pradeep.
Thank you very much, Sujataka, for this lovely introduction. And I'm really happy to be doing this just around Shivratri. Like she said, the visual is very important. Nel in Tamil is paddy, and therefore you can see this was just a very happenstance situation when my young photographer Kumar went to the temple when they were just getting all the annual paddy intake, and he got this photograph done. Can I just have the light switched off before I start? This temple posed a little bit of a challenge on how to do it, and I'm gonna explain it in a bit. How many of you have actually been to the Nellaiappar Temple? Okay, those who have their hands up, no, keep your hands up. How many of you are actually from Tirunelveli or have a connection to Tirunelveli? Yeah, so this is the usual pattern, right? Not unusual at all. For a temple of 14 acres, which has been around since the 7th century, in a way, it's very appropriate to do this just around Shivaratri, because the core monument and institution that promoted Shaivism in southern Tamil Nadu is actually the Nellaiappar Temple. Yet very, very few people get to go there unless you're actually connected to the region, which is very surprising. So, and it's easy to do a talk on the Tanjavur Brihadeshwara Temple because it's just one monument built by one king, and it's a very simple plan monument. This is 14 acres, which is much larger than the Brihadeshwara Temple, built by multiple kings, and the uniqueness of this temple is more than kings, and you'll see, I'll give you rattle down a list of donors at some point in time. Many ordinary landlords, ordinary people have come together and caused this. Every part of that 14 acre is built over, and there are multiple shrines inside, so it's actually a very, very complex structure. So it was kind of difficult for me to figure out how to do this. I will deliberately want to leave you feeling a little overwhelmed at the end of this 45 minutes, because that will hopefully push you to go and see the place, yeah, but not too overwhelmed that you get confused. The best way I thought we should do this, just in case time runs short, is do like a virtual guided tour. Yeah, so we're going to start in one part of the temple where the goddess is, and then we're going to go to the god's shrine, and then we'll come out and we'll at least virtually see the Alva place as well. Yeah, because that's important for Tirunelveli. So this is going to be the rough plan, which means that if time time becomes a little bit of a crunch, we can always hurry up the guided tour a little bit. So this was the plan that I had when we started. The earliest evidence we have of this temple is a 7th century verse of Trinyana Samandar, when he goes to Tirunelveli and he sings a set of verses on the temple, where he says, the only thing that you really need, the only medicine that you really need is just Shiva's name. And he goes on to sing about this in the Nellaiappar Temple. So let's listen to an Oduvar sing that one verse, and then we'll start visiting the temple.
சிற்றம்பலம் திருஞான சம்பந்த பெருமான் அருளி செய்த திருக்கடைக்காப்பு தலம் திருநெல்வேலி பண் சாதார் திருச்சிற்றம்பலம் மகிழ்வுயவை மந்திரம் மருந்து அவை மந்திரம் மறுமை நன்னேறி அவை மற்றும் எல்லாம் மருந்து அவை மந்திரம் மறுமை நன்னேறியவை மற்றும் எல்லாம் மருந்து அவை மந்திரம் மறுமை நன்னேறியவை மற்றும் எல்லாம் அருந்துயர்கடும் அவர் நாமமே சிந்தை அருந்துயர்கடும் அவர் நாமமே சிந்தை நன்னெஞ்சமே அருந்துயர்கடும் அவர் நாமமே சிந்தை நன்னெஞ்சமே அரும் துயர்கடும் அவர் நாமமே சிந்தை நன்னெஞ்சமே
Sorry. Anyway, we'll get back to that song. So this is the rough plan of what we're going to do today. We're going to look at where this temple is, why it's important, get some sense of the structure. This will be the bulk of the program. The number of music and dance related inscriptions in this temple are very high. And I wanted to spend a few minutes on this because the general conception in Tamil Nadu is the best music and dance actually happened in the Tanjore Delta. Sure.
Sorry for that interruption. There's a car 9231, which apparently is either not locked properly or something. There's a sound emanating, so can somebody take care of it? Thank you. Sorry about that.
So generally the conception, the feeling is that music and dance is mostly in the Tanjore Delta. I wanted to spend a little bit of time to disprove that and look at the extraordinarily varied kind of inscriptions that we have connected to this. We will not have too much of time, but I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse. The temple has some very interesting inscriptions as well. We'll spend some time on that. We may not have much time for the festivals, but I'll at least give you some basic statistics. So this is going to be the broad flow of the presentation today. So where is this temple? It's right at the bottom over there. There's that heart sign that you can see in the Indian subcontinent. That's where we are, really, really down south. The earliest reference we have to this word Tirunelveli, according to Uve Saminadayar, the grandfather of Tamil, is he says in Madurai Kanchi there's a reference which says Nellin Ur Konda. And he says this Nellin Ur Konda, that Ur, meaning basically it's a town that had grains, paddy. He says that's what Tirunelveli is. Probably true. In the old records, we don't hear of the word Tamraparni at all, the river Tamraparni. It's called Purunai. Though there are some scholars who feel this Purunai is actually in the Chera country, most feel that it is in this, it is a Tamraparni river. In the Pandya region, this region was known as Kilvembu Nadu. Vembu is neem trees, and the tutelary tree for the Pandyas was the neem tree. So any connection with the Pandya royal tree was the neem tree. So Kilvembu Nadu is the lower part of the Pandya country. So these are the different names by which it is known. Kalidasa in the Raghuvamsa is one of the first people who refers to this river as Tamraparni. Taprobane is the name of the river in the Greek records. This place has a long connection with trade to Rome and Greece, not just Kiyadi, which we're all familiar with, but on the Tamraparni river banks, Sivakalai and Adichanallur, which are as old as Kiyadi, if not older. All of these were centers for trade in the Roman period. So what I'm trying to say is this place is not so much visited today, but in the Greco-Roman period, in the early part of about 2,000 years back, a very, very important trade hub for the region. And I think that blood somewhere still counts, because if you look at the larger traditional business families in early independent India, the TVS, the amalgamation, most of them actually came from this region. Tanjore is a great place to go for music and learning how to live the good life. But if you want to look at how to earn money, you have to come to Tirunelveli region, because we'll teach you how to do that. So that's the center of where we're going to be today. This is a kind of a zoom out of the temple, all the 14 acres of it. So you can see it's a very, very thickly constructed temple, lot of shrines inside. We may not have time to do all of the important shrines, but we'll at least give you some sense of the magnificence of variety that's there, and hopefully you'll be dazzled enough to go and visit it at some point of time. This gives you a sense of the plan of how the temple is. So you can see it's actually the smaller shrine on the left side is the Kantimati Amman shrine. There's a pond over there, and on this side, the larger complex is the Nellaiappar Temple, which is actually, there are three temples inside that. Yeah. So one is, of course, the sheer size that is spread over 14 acres. We've talked about it. Like I said, Shaivism in South India, this was a very, very important place. We had about 60 different Shaivite matas at one point of time. And even in the 1940s, many of them were active. It's just in the last few decades, many of them have completely vanished, which is very sad. And some of the Shaiva matas or monasteries that were attached to the temple were of even very, very heterodox sects for those days, which is like the Golakis, the Kapalikas, the Kalamukas, who were all very much of the Atimarga, or the more horrific worship of Shiva. So very different from the regular kind of Shaivite worship that we thought of. Even they had a lot of connection over here. So if you visited the temple in, say, the 12th century or the 13th century, you might have seen a very peaceful coexistence of Shaivite ascetics who are extremely, people like us in terms of worshipping Shiva through mantras and pujas and a very orderly way of doing it, and the very Aghora, Naga, Sadhu kind of worshippers. So it's very difficult to think of it now today, but in those days, a very eclectic group of Shaivites who actually looked after this temple. This is, of course, for the Nataraja devotees, this is very important, because out of the 5 important sabhas of Nataraja, one is over here, and we're going to spend some time on that. And like I said, it's a great repository, not just for music and dance, but for art as well. Generally, again, there's a feeling that the best art and the best music and dance came in the Kaveri Delta. I'm hoping that some of these images and some of the audio clips is going to prove otherwise. Tirunelveli also has a very rich tradition and a very beautiful tradition as well. So these are some of the things that we're going to see in the next couple of slides. Yeah. So this is what you'll see today. Where the Saravana Bhavan is and where these shops are were all different Shaiva matas that were there. Some of these were these heterodox sects that I told you. Some of them were matas where Brahmins could take up asceticism and, give up their Brahmin privileges. You had matas like this. You also had matas where you didn't have sannyasis. You had married people who could also be in matas, who had families with them. So whole different range of matas that were there. Sadly, most of these matas have gone now. Their buildings have been surreptitiously sold. They must have had important deities. They would have had libraries. All of this is gone. There's very, very little left over today for us to see all of these. So even there were, so old people say that there were about 64 matas at one point in time. Even in 1944, there was a booklet that the temple released. There were about 44 matas. Today, there are just about 3 or 4 of them, and they're all in various states of ruin. So we should spend some time on the 5 Natarajas. The person who made Nataraja world famous was a Sri Lankan scholar called Ananda Kumarasamy. He wrote an article where he, for the first time in English, he wrote about the philosophy of Shiva and Nataraja that we've always all known about in the Tamil tradition. And he would have taken it either from the Shaiva Siddhanta works, especially Thirumolar and the Thevaram is where he would have taken it. In the Hindu Eastern tradition, we view time very differently from the Western tradition. In the Western tradition, we are all hurtling towards Judgment Day. 2026, for example, will never come back. In the Indian tradition, we see time as being cyclical. So every 60 years, our years repeat. So everything that we see, including an event like this, is seen in 3 stages: Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara. And when that Samhara happens, a new Srishti happens. So what does this mean? Srishti is creation. So intact, and Ashwita, we put this event together. Sthiti is the stabilization. So you get the housekeeping should be okay. I should do a good job as a presenter. The light should work. If all of these things happen, then you have a good experience here. In about half an hour, 45 minutes, this program is going to end. That's the Samhara part. But hopefully, next time we meet, there will be a greater deal of warmth, which is the new Srishti that will happen. This is the basic Indian philosophy. Now, as Shiva and Vishnu became more and more important, in the Shaiva tradition, they said all these 3 parts are done by Shiva himself. So, all these different iconographies we have of Shiva ultimately roll into 5 different forms of Shiva. One is Satyojata, which is where Shiva is the creator. Not Brahma, but Shiva is the creator. Vamadeva is Shiva as the preserver. Not Vishnu, but Shiva. Aghora is Shiva as the destroyer. Tatpurusha is Shiva who is present within everything within this cosmos. Whether you can describe it or not, whether it's animate or inanimate, Shiva is within all of them. That is Tatpurusha. And finally is Ishana, where he gives boons, where he gives our grace. So these 5 forms have been popular in Shaiva tradition for a long time. Vaishnava tradition has something very similar to this. Ananda Kumarasamy saw all of these 5 forms within Nataraja, and that was the basis of this paper. And because he wrote it in English, it went all across the world, and suddenly the West discovered the greatness of Nataraja. Of course, it also helps that Nataraja is, as an image, he is very compelling. That also helps. But this was the day that, you would have read that there's some institute in Switzerland which also has Nataraja in the front. All of that happened because of this one essay that Ananda Kumarasamy wrote. So when Ananda Kumarasamy looked at Nataraja, he said the Srishti aspect of creation is when Shiva is holding the Damaru, the Big Bang Theory, right? We created it long time before. The maintenance part, the preserving part, is when Shiva is holding Abhayahasta. He's protecting and ensuring everything happens. The destruction part is the fire, which he also holds in his hand. The Tatpurusha part, where Shiva is within everybody, is the foot that is stamping the demon of ignorance, which is Apasmara. So the minute we learn that we are ignorant, and actually the true bliss is in recognizing that Shiva is within everybody, is what that step shows. And the final foot, which is to outward bound, is the one that gives grace. And in the earliest images of Shiva that we have of him dancing, one is in Tirumalapuram in Tirunelveli, the other is in Siyamangalam, which is not too far off from Chennai. The Bhujanga Trasitam, which is this hand going this way, it's very clumsily done. But by the Chola period, slowly they refine it so that hand actually points to the foot, and it says, now if you really want my grace, look at my foot, everything will happen. So Kumarasamy basically said, all of these 5 forms are within Nataraja. And in the Nataraja was the tutelary deity for the Chola kings. Therefore, and all the Chola kings were crowned in Chidambaram. Chidambaram became a very, very important place in the Chola dynasty. But because they had that connection with the Nataraja, they actually created the Nataraja that we know today, which is in Chidambaram. Thiruvalangada, of course, there is a different story. So the Nataraja there is a little different. Kutralam, I wasn't able to get an image, but I just got it today. But there also you will see the Nataraja is very similar to Chidambaram Nataraja. Madurai should have been a Pandya Nataraja, but it's very different. Tirunelveli has a Pandya Nataraja. So this is how the Chitsaba looks. Inside is a Nataraja. As you can see, is very, very different. The Pandya Nataraja was very different from the Chola Nataraja. Today, when you go to many of the temples in Tirunelveli, you will find the Chola Nataraja where there is a perfect Prabhavali, which is a circular shape. Nataraja is in this Bhujanga Tarasitam, where one hand is pointing to this foot, the foot is pointing towards the one part of the circle, and the Apasmara is at the bottom. The Virisade or the matted locks of Shiva will stretch from the head all the way till the aureole in the back. This is the standard Nataraja. Even if you take one 50 rupee souvenir, you will find the same Nataraja. This is a Chola image. The early Pandya image was very, very different. And this is one of the few images that we have today. The early Pandya image, there is no Prabhavali. The premise probably that the Pandya artisans had, Are, you're saying Shiva is Tatpurusha, he is everywhere. How can you confine him into a Prabhavali? He is everywhere. The Chola idea is he starts as a fire, that fire grows into a fire that illuminates the whole world. Therefore, they put a Prabhavali with all the Agni going around. But the Pandya system was different. Because the Pandyas didn't have a Prabhavali, their Natarajas also didn't have very long tresses. Because when you have a long tress, it becomes very fragile. You need a support in the side to hold it. So this is one of the few examples we have of the Pandya style. If you go to the National Museum, Chennai Museum today, and if you look carefully, many of the treasure finds of the Nataraja they have found in the Pandya region will actually be like this. The Chola Natarajas will be very different. The Pandya Nataraja will be very different. So in this temple, he is called Muni Tandavam over here. The shrine over here is one of the oldest. It's still made out of wood. It's coated with copper. Again and again in this Tamraparni region, you will find copper coming up. Yeah, Tamraparni itself is supposed to have a lot of copper. Sabha here is called the Tamra Sabha. My suspicion is this region had a very close historical and business connection with Sri Lanka, and we have copper deposits in Sri Lanka. So a lot of the copper that this region needed for its industrialization for the Greek and Roman trade, that copper would have come from there, which is why again and again, even in the Roman Greek records, they talk about how Tamraparni is rich in copper. So there must have been copper would have been found a lot over here. In fact, there are stories of why Rajaraja Chola invaded Sri Lanka, not just for the land part of it, because he wanted access to the copper mines, because Cholas wanted copper as well, not just for the bronzes they were doing, but for the copper coins as well. So this region, because out of the 5 sabhas of Nataraja, the copper sabha is in Tirunelveli, and it's a truly stunning sight. Actually, I think there's a later photo, the way the sabha is positioned in terms of design, there's a narrow dark corridor and there's a pool of light, and you can see the sabha in the end. Especially when you see it in the early morning, late evening, sometimes the sun will glint on the copper tiles. It's truly beautiful to see this. So this copper sabha, therefore, for the worshippers of Nataraja is important. And I also wanted to, go a little bit of a double click into giving you how the Chola style of Nataraja was different. The Pandya style of Nataraja was also very different. And this is one of the few temples where we still probably have an intact Pandya image of Nataraja still under active worship. So that's the image for you to have a closer look. It's a very, very stunning image. And the other difficulty with the Pandyas is the region is a very harsh region. For those of you who've traveled around Tirunelveli, you'll understand. It's just the region around the Tambraparni river is very, very fertile. The rest of it, a lot of it is actually rain shadow area. So the region is a very harsh region. And the Pandyas were a dynasty, which is, by the way, one of the world's oldest dynasties. The problem with dating the Pandyas is many Pandyas ruled at the same time. You had one Pandya ruling in the Madurai region. You had Vembanadu, which is Tirunelveli, you had one Pandya. Tengasi region, you had another Pandya. Kanyakumari region, you had another Pandya. Shivagangai, Karaikudi, that region, you had another. So there were these 5 Pandyas who were ruling at the same time. If one Pandya king was really strong, he kept his kinsmen under his thumb. If he wasn't very strong, each of them ruled very independently. And to make matters even more complicated, most of them have the same names. So it's very, and because they were always in a rush in terms of the agriculture not being so good, fighting with each other, they never left a lot of inscriptions like the Cholas. So dating Pandya bronzes, dating Pandya temples, very, very complicated. Which is why there is an earlier 7th century or earlier temple in the Nellaiappar Temple complex, but very few inscriptions, so we can't date it. Most of the Pandya inscriptions we have are from the 12th century or later. Yeah, so we're gonna walk into the Kantimadiamman shrine. Let me get my, yeah. So the Gopuram that we are getting into was built in 1626. The shops are really ugly on the side. So I think you should look up to the ceiling because you'll see this. So very, very rare to see 17th century woodwork still available in Tamil Nadu. We don't have the kind of weather that preserves wood well. And it's a shame that I don't think this has even been documented completely in terms of how many sculptures are there and all of that, not been done yet at all. Absolutely fascinating stuff. If you, now that you're forewarned, you can be forearmed by taking a phone with a good zoom or binoculars over there, because each of these sculptures are gems of works of art. So I'm going to just take you through a couple of pictures. And you can see that not only is there a buttress in the front, there are sculptures in the back as well. So it's like a very deep building. This is from the 1626. Yeah. Some really beautiful examples with finials on the top. Yeah. And you get into the main temple over here. There is a small Nandi over here for the Kantimadiamman temple, but we go inside to this to see the very, very famous musical pillars. These musical pillar tradition was mostly created during the Vijayanagara period. We see them in Hampi, in the Vitala temple. We see them here in Madurai as well. There are a few temples which do this. Fortunately today, most people who go there don't know about these. Which is a good thing, because many of the pillars have lost their sound. This is basically, they're called phonolithic. So there's a kind of stone which emits a musical note to it. They are, wait, I had this noted down. Yeah, so there's one pillar in the middle and there are 48 around them. And we have 4 sets like this on the 4 sides. There was a time when each pillar would play a note. But what has happened is many people hit the stone pillar with a stone. That damages the sound. The right way to do this is to hit it with a small wooden mallet. Even if you take a small wooden piece and you hit it, you don't need to even do it very hard. You have to do it very softly, you can immediately hear it. So I believe, and I would love to hear this at some point in time, Tirunelveli AIR sometime in the 1980s apparently had a musician come and perform a couple of songs and recorded them and broadcast them by people playing on these pillars. Today, apparently, you can't play too many ragas on this because many of the swarams don't work. I think Harikambodhi, is one of the Harikambodhi and Karara Priya are 2 ragams that you can still play on this. So those of you who are more musically inclined, you can do this. Somewhere on the top, and I'm not showing you a photo here, are 2 squirrels catching each other. And the local story is that a good musician, when he sings a swara, will also have a gamaka or an oscillation. And the gamaka is like the squirrel's tail bobbing up and down when it's running. So when the squirrel is running, the singer is also singing his gamaka. And when that swara finishes and it has to go and join the next swara, it should be like this lovelorn female squirrel jumping onto the male squirrel, and that speed. So he says that grace of movement should come in the song, which is why there are two squirrels scampering up in there. So you can see that over there. And after this, you actually get into the temple. I'm not, of course, showing you the main deity, but on the side of the deity is some proof for us that while Chola bronzes are internationally famous, Tirunelveli also has bronzes of very fine quality. All of these are donor figures. Looking at their saris, they must have been given by the Pillaivar community. The Pillaivar community is a forward caste community. They are that region's dominant upper caste landholding communities, and they were deeply involved in Shaivism. In fact, in the Pillaivar community, not so much now, but in the old days, if you went to their house, as soon as you entered their house, the first thing that you will see is a wall. There will be an arch in that wall, and there will be a lamp inside with four faces, eight facets pillar, 8 facet stem, four faces on the top, and something like a veil. They never even had deity images and all. My suspicion is many of them were originally Jains, because this region was very popular with Jains. They all got converted back to Hinduism, whatever it is, but they are one of the most important patrons as a community to this temple. There are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are about 7 lamps inside. There's one lamp that you can see. There's one which has a lamp in the front, and this one on this side, if you see, is really pretty. I don't have a close-up of this, but the donor has a small Shivalinga on one hand, and he has a Vilva leaf on the other side. And the Vilva leaf, the Shivalingam is so beautifully done. You have to go by, close it. Unfortunately, I mean, everybody is in such a mad rush to see the temple itself, the deity itself. You'll have a lot of time to go appreciate these if you go to the temple. But the star of these bronzes is this one. Yeah, she's about 3.5 feet for sure. And these are all so I spent time with noted jewelry expert Usha Balakrishnan. She gave me all the names, so let me get the names right. This is a Koppu, okay? This is a Visiri Murugu. She doesn't have this. Okay, this is the Pambada. So it's got the snake over there. Then this is the Ananta Mudichu, which is over here. This is shaped like Brahma's knot. It's shaped like that. So you can't see either end of the knot. So this is a earring. And then the Chavidi is the Tamil name for this. That's the last one, which has little holes on this. This necklace, of course, is a kare. Kare is a very popular necklace in the Tirunelveli region. Nobody wears this now. Some of you may remember this K.R. Vijaya movie, Poombuhar. Yeah. So watch that movie carefully. There is one scene where Kovalan will send for Kannagi to give her jewelry. And when K.R. Vijaya is taking off all her jewelry, one of the necklaces she'll be wearing is a kare. So you see, it sits heavily over here. So all these beads are arranged like this, and it's a thick piece of wire inside. So it will move up and down like this. So that's the kare. Yeah, I suppose other parts of Tamil Nadu also had it, but in Tirunelveli, it's a very, very important piece of jewelry. I have not seen these in antique shops and stuff. If somebody can share a picture or something, I'd really be grateful. So it's a truly magnificent, that lamp. And this lamp as well. So these two are very different lamps. They're about 3.5 feet high. Stunning works of art. And I'm only showing you the earrings. You should see the back, the rakudi and the sari and the other pieces of jewelry. There's a lot of information over here. So this is all in the Kantimati Amman Sannadhi. This is a very rare photograph. The temple had an unbroken tradition of keeping jewelry. Many of those may have even been medieval Pandya pieces. But very, very sadly, in the 1970s, the government and the temple authorities decided to melt all of this and create new jewelry. So the last photo with all the jewelry is this one. So my resource person was very anxious that I share this to all of you. The konde that she is wearing is called a Mambara konde. So it looks something like a mango, but it flares up in the back and there'll be a disc, and all of that was studded with a lot of jewelry as well. So this is the last image that we have. And just to give you a sense of this jewelry, he was very keen that I talk about this. also this role of the Shaiva Matams, no, they weren't just about promoting Shaivism. They also served as agony aunts, counselors, people who ordinary people could turn to, because these were all non-Brahmin matas. They were not Brahmin matas. So these were, and they were also, all of them had multiple roles in the temple to ensure that the temple affairs were well managed. So I'll give you a small example. The people who had the keys to the temple treasury, there were 5 matas. Sengol Adina Matam, which was in Perungulam, which is still there, but it's in a very, very poor state of disrepair. Then there's the Terku Madam, Vembattur Andanar Madam, the Male Radhavidi Tirupambariya Madam, the Vadakku Madam, which is also called the Umayarubagan Madam. So all of these Madadipatis had to come together. Their 5 keys had to come together, and only then the temple treasury could be opened, the jewelry could be taken out. There was a specific, out of these 5 matas, ever so often they had one rotating post called the Punmuttu. This Punmuttu was the custodian of the jewelry. He would take the jewelry out. I suppose they had an indexing system. So I just wanted to say that sometimes we think that, oh, British taught us how to document stuff and all. We also had our fairly complex systems at that point in time. Now, of course, I think HRC takes care of it. But anyway, all this jewelry is gone. But at least this is the last photo that we had of the jewelry. But fortunately, the bronzes are still there. It's a shame that in most temples in Tirunelveli region, especially the Shaiva temples, in the 70s and 80s, all those bronzes have been replaced. They've all gone up. Many of the temples, you go and see them, very obviously they're ugly new pieces. Pandya bronzes, Chola bronzes. Tirunelveli has been, and I think also because one is Chola temples had a lot to offer. Tirunelveli was less, but in the 70s and 80s, when there was huge urban migration, so all these smugglers, people like Vijay were getting it all out. Many of these bronzes would have gone at that time out from this region. Yeah, so we're crossing the pond. I had to say something about the pond. So the pond is largely built through the donation of the Tiruvavaradure Adinam, Dharmapura Adinam, and many of the Natukota Chettiars as well, for all of whom this is an important temple. Not in this pond, but there are several inscriptions in the temple which talk about lotus garlands of 120 lotuses. Yeah. So this 120 is an odd number. They must have had some formula for it. Only if you go and see the region, you will understand why people are obsessed with giving lotus garlands. If you have to give 120 lotuses in one garland every day, right, or for a particular period every month, whenever the lotus was in season, you need a lot of lotuses, which means you need a large water body. If you need that kind of a large water body that has to be maintained, for that reason at least, there will be a lot of water in the region. And in the Tirunelveli region, every drop of water counts. So these were small things that they did to ensure that water bodies, water conservation happened in very arid regions like this. Yeah. So now we are going across. This is one of the most beautiful mandapams. It's about 300 feet long and 30 feet wide. This was built by a person called Nellaiappar Temple, and this is called the Sangili Mandapam. Sangili Mandapam is Sangili is like a chain. This basically connects the Ambal Sannadhi or Kantimadi shrine. It connects it to the Nellaiappar's temple, and there's some stunning sculptures over here. There are these 2 huge sculptures of monkeys, each of them about 7 feet high. But the one that I would really encourage you to see is the door at the end. Again, this is probably from the 17th century or earlier. Very rare to see wooden doors of this quality in the temple even today. And it's such a scary thing that just one renovation, they can decide that these are too heavy to move, right? Or they're too big, and they can just take these away. And we'll never know the loss of it. So again, Tanjavur has, or Chettinad has the general Tamil Nadu, the mind share on how beautiful woodwork is. Tirunelveli also has its own style. Yeah, and it gets better. So as you enter this door, you enter into the Nellaiappar part of the shrine. Also, some more images for you. This is an interesting image. You find this in Tirunelveli very often. That's Purushamriga over there, and this is Bhima. So the story of Purushamriga is he is half animal, half man, and Yudhishthira wanted him to fight on their side, but there was a problem. This Purushamriga was like a very violent kind of a person, and he will constantly be fighting with somebody. Yeah, the only thing that will stop him is a Shivalinga, because he will start doing Shiva Puja. He was a very deep devotee of Shiva. So the story goes that what Bhima does is to entice him. Ever so often Purushamriga is coming and they're running. So Bhima is trying to run away from Purushamriga and Purushamriga is chasing him. Ever so often Bhima will throw a stone, and that stone will transform into a lingam. Purushamriga will go do some puja over there, and that gave Bhima a little bit of an advantage of time. Now, this story must have been a really popular drama, dance, some theatre, something in the Tirunelveli region, because very, very often you find it there. You find a Purushamriga Vahana in Shiva temples in Tiruvannamalai, in Tanjavur and places, but you don't find the story at all. It's a very local story. So you'll find almost all Tirunelveli temples, somewhere or the other, Vishnu temples, Shiva temples, you'll find this Purushamriga and Bhima in various stages of combat. This must be Nellaiappar Temple, because he is the only single standing statue in the Sangili Mandapam. And there's some lovely images of Sugriva. I think this one is Vali Sugriva. I mean, you can have your own take, but the monkeys are really, really pretty ones. Yeah, you should see them. So now we're crossing into, so we should be about here. We should be about here. This is where the Sangili Mandapam starts. And when you go through those lovely wooden doors, you see this. There seems to be a tradition in Tirunelveli of a wooden gopuram with a wall constructed in front of an important building. You see this in Brahmadesam. Of course, the best example is this. Even in Zamindar palaces like Singambatti, in Ettayapuram, in Ilavarasendal, you see these kind of things. So it must have been some kind of a local tradition. Again, these are also very, very fragile. So you just see one part, the larger part is this. Yeah, stunning workmanship in wood, very, very hard wood. This is not your rosewood or teak wood, which is relatively easier to carve. This is local country wood, which has been very hard to carve, very, very well maintained. Again, very fragile. It's important that, someone documents this and keeps it carefully, because in my own lifetime, I'm only 50, Seranma Devi had something like this, the Ramasamy temple. And about 5 years back when I went there, the whole thing had vanished. Something he said, oh, something, whatever reason, it's all completely gone. So in just a flash of a second, these kind of lovely structures can just disappear. So you enter the Nellaiappar Temple from the Kantinadi Amman temple by looking at this. There's a Pulyar inside. The other very famous Pulyar, and I don't have a photo of him, is Polla Pulyar. Now this Polla in Tamil, people think is Polladavan, right? A wicked guy. That's not the meaning. Polla means in Tamil, it means one who has not been touched by a chisel. So this Pulyar is supposed to have been created by himself. But if you look at that, it looks like a Chola, late Chola, early Pandya kind of an image. But the Pulyar is important here. And we also need to remember, generally Ganesha worship in Tamil Nadu, Pandya region is actually some of the oldest. And many of our oldest Ganeshas actually come from the Pandya region. So this Polla Pulyar, this whole tradition of worshipping. There are many shrines for Ganesha in the Nellaiappar Temple. We're not going to go through any of them. But I just wanted to, Polla Pulyar, of course, is the most famous of the lot. But the Ganesha shrine reminds us that the worship of Ganesha was very, very important in the Tirunelveli region. Now, this is a massive corridor that we are entering. You can't take a right, because then you'll be going anti-clockwise. You take a left. So you take a left through the corridor like this. All of these are massive corridors. Many of them have images of Nayak kings. We have no clue who they are. 16th century, 17th century, maybe even early 18th century as well. This is Kantimati, who was a very beloved elephant. There were a lot of people weeping when she passed away a couple of, last year or the year before. A lot of people are actually weeping. People are very, very fond of Kantimati. She's no more now. Yeah. So a lot of these kind of Nayak figures, you'll see, your guess is as good as mine. We have no idea who these are. Yeah. We go all around the temple and then we come back. This is the Nandi in the front. To this side, on the left side, is something called the Somavara Mantapam. In the Tirunelveli Shaiva temple tradition, especially Somavaram, which is Kartika month, The 4 Tiruvadarai Nakshatrams are very important in the Tirunelveli tradition. Many of the Shiva temples in Tirunelveli, just so if the main deity is facing this way, just outside on the left side, there'll be a large mandapam exclusively for this Tiruvadarai festival. Somavara mandapam is the one for Nellaiappar. Now, in this temple, there's a very unique tradition, which is that if a king wants to see the deity as a king, he can then apply for this in advance. He will come to the Somavara Mandapam, and the position will be in such a way that even if he is standing, the deity will be a few feet above him, and Shiva will come from inside. In the processional figure of Shiva will come from inside, dressed as a king, and he will be seen there. Because if a reigning king who's dressed like a king, he can't go into the temple wearing the turban and the crown and all that. He can't do that. Yeah. So if he wants to see the deity as a king, he'll have to do it from the Somavara Mandapam. I believe the last time a king saw him in that regal way is the Mysore Maharaja sometime in the 1960s. Nobody does it now. That event is all, it's just the memories of people. There's a very, very beautiful large Nandi. There are some, this is the entrance to the Somavara Mandapam. These are very, very important sculptures. There are 4 sculptures over here, and that's the entrance to the Nellaiappar Temple inside. How are we doing on time? 25. Okay. We'll look up. Really stunning images of Vijayanagara period. This a little bit of a gory detail here. The reason that this the dagger is curved is the idea is you stab it into near the belly button, you turn it, and then you pull it out, and all the entails come out as well. So these 4 sculptures, not going into too much of time, but these 4 sculptures are extraordinarily well done. I mean, your guess is good on who they are. There's some general story that this is Karna and all that, Arjuna, Karna and all that. We really don't know. There's no inscription there, but they're very, very fierce looking warriors, very, very well carved sculptures, worth spending some time. So these are some more images. The Somavara Mandapam, that region has a lot of sculptures. Can't go into all of them. More sculptures. Very fine details. Yeah. And this theme is also very common in Tirunelveli. A gypsy woman kidnapping a prince and a gypsy man kidnapping a princess. Must have been some theater presentation, something connected with it. Yeah. So all of this is over there. And this is, of course, so we've gone into the temple and we've come out a little bit. On this side is a long corridor where Venu, which is the Sthala Vriksha or the sacred tree, the bamboo is over there. And inside the temple, this is a very unique image of Bogeshwara, of Shiva seated with Parvati. There's a story that some of the important offerings were made to this deity as well. Very rare to see an image like this inside a Shiva temple in Tamil Nadu. Many other places you can see these kind of images. To my knowledge, this is a one of a kind. This whole wall inside is all medieval Pandya inscriptions from the 12th, 13th, 14th century. So this must also be from that time. So if this one is a little too serious for you, this one's more fun. Can you notice what's happening? There's a cockfight. Yeah. So you have a lot of sculptures over here filled with inscriptions from the Pandya period. Yeah. This is the oldest temple. So as you're walking out, you can see this temple is completely under the ground. It's been built over completely. This is the Mulasthanadar temple. This is a temple that Samandar visited in the 7th century. And you can see how far away it's gone down. It's about almost 8 feet, 9 feet under the ground. This was the original Nellaiappar temple, and very rare to see intact Pandya temples from the 7th century or earlier, and this is one of them. It's very sad that it's been covered on all the other sides, but that's happened a long time back. That's a lovely image of Kantinadi Amman that I wanted to show you. Yeah. You have the Mulasthanadar right at the bottom. You have Nellaiappar on the top, and adjacent you have Govindaraja as reclining Vishnu. There's a story. There are some Sthala Puranas connected with it. My suspicion is during the time of Rajaraja, he worked really hard to bring the Shaivas and the Vaishnavites together. Many temples he created composite temples of Shiva and Vishnu together. Nellaiappar could have been one of them as well. Yeah, this is the stunning view of. So when you get out of the Shiva temple and you take a right, You go through this long dark corridor and you can see the Tamra Sabha right at the end. And actually on this corridor, and as you turn right, there are many small temples, very important, each of them. We're not going to go to those in this guided tour today. Yeah. So this is a stunning temple. You should go and have a look. Yeah. And as you exit, this is the halwa shop. Yeah. Thought I should show you this. This is the halwa shop. So we've kind of finished the guided tour of the temple. I'm just going to take very short time. There are almost 100 inscriptions in the temple, and it's very unusual to see many of them connected to music. I'm not going to give you the list because of paucity of time, but there are attendance rolls. There were probably at one point of time almost 15 different musicians in the temple. Thiru Ganam Padum Per is the name of the people who used to recite these Thevaram songs. We have many inscriptions connected to them. We have many inscriptions that talk about people in Kerala donating for dance and musical performances in the temple. So there seems to have been a long connection with Kerala over here. We have names, we have musical instruments mentioned, a lot of these. I'm not going to go into details. With Dr. Sumati here, I'm not going to embarrass myself, but this is a very unique inscription from, let me just give you the details of who did this. Just observe it. Tala Anga Pramanam. This was created by Pichandi Annavi of Pasuvandane village, probably 17th century. I'm not going to embarrass myself with Dr. Krishnan in front of me. Basically, a talam can be divided into the different components. You have a plutam, anudrutam, dhritam, all of these things. What this man has done is he's created a image or an icon for each of these. So can you see there's a 0 there? There's a 1 here. There's this kind of a symbol. Let me see. I think I had something a little better. No, this is an explanation. So each of these, and this is people who will understand Talam and Laya will understand these better. Each of these means you have to use your fingers in a particular way. So these are the basic images, the basic talams and all the derivatives out of that. So basically what he has done is in this one image, he has given you like a compendium of all the talams that you can create. To my understanding, there are a lot of inscriptions on music, on swaras. Kurmiyamala has one on, how do you play the parivadini and all of that stuff. Talam, this is the only one that I know of in the tradition. Yeah, actually, in a way, they've done the right thing. This is just in front of, and very appropriately, this is in front of the Murugan shrine. Arunagiri Nadar, Murugan, Tirupugar, very important for Talam. So I think that's why they put it over there. In the old days, this was actually slightly painted. So it's an old photograph. Now they've removed all the painting, but fortunately they put a little cage around it so nobody can go and step on it. But because the paint is not there, it's kind of difficult to see. But I'm sure somebody who's an expert in talams and stuff, in fact, it'll be lovely if somebody picks us off and writes a little article on it or does a little demo or something. It'll be quite interesting to see. So this was done by somebody in memory of their guru. Very unique inscription. Yeah. I'm not going to go into this. Of course, when we hear of Kantimati, we should listen to at least 1 or 2 lines of Dikshita's immortal composition. So I'm going to play just one line and then we'll move on. Almost to the end. There are almost 120 odd inscriptions in the temple. Most of them are, all of them are about the temple and the donations and given. Many of them are very deep administrative records, many important because they help us date Pandya kings much better, which is important. There are donations from Rajaraja, Kulotunga, many others. The two that are interesting, I'm going to share. One is, just a second, 1833. They completed the Kumbhabhishekam of the temple. There's a long inscription. Actually, it's written twice, and they've actually given the account statement. And it says at the end of it, in 1833, the Kumbhabhishekam costed 45,008 rupees, 9 annas, 18 paisa in 1833. Okay. One poem, which is generally inscriptions will give are quite boring in a way because they're like account documents. They just tell you who gave what, when did they give, who was the witnesses, and if this goes wrong, what is the procedure. But in the Nellaiappar Temple, I don't know many other temples which have this. There are some inscriptions which are given in verse, which can actually be sung. One of them is by, it's a very long name, so give me a little time. Tadakkanni Sitrudayan Uyya Tondar Undan Gurugulak Tarayar. Now, this is a long name for a very important person. Gurukula Tarayar was the Kula Guru of the greatest king of the medieval Pandyas, Maravarman Sundara Pandya. Those of you who may have been to Tirthangal, that temple is mostly done by this Gurukula Tarayar. So this Gurukula Tarayar has given a very interesting verse where he says, I have given so much of land to the Nellaiappar Temple today. Because of this, Shiva does not have to beg for alms becoming the Bhikshatana anymore. He doesn't have to be a beggar anymore. I've given enough even land. Bhikshatana can stay in the temple itself. He's got enough land. This is one. And the another one has, this is by someone else. He's done a very interesting word play. He says, this is Nelveli. I am creating a Solveli, which is a poem, Solveli, through words, because I have created a Kalveli, which is a compound wall for the temple. Yeah, so there are 2 or 3 inscriptions like this. So very, very fun. There are some inscriptions that talk about food that's given. A lot of them are actually about agricultural related land, especially with water. I was saying 120 lotus garlands and things. So these are important for us, because they give us a very, very good idea of medieval Pandya administration systems, which we don't get in many other temples. Fortunately, all of these inscriptions have been recorded. They've all been published in Tamil. Nobody has done an edited work in English, but at least the original is over there. Yeah, so I think that's about it. We won't have much time for the festivals, and I think you should go and see festivals. But it's impressive, 284.5 days in a year there is a festival in the temple. Okay? And I'm not counting the regular ones like Amavasya, Paurnavi, then there's Tiruvadirai Nakshatram, some Tiruvadirais I'm counting here, but this is quite impressive for a temple. So there's a chance that if you fix a 5-day holiday and you go to the temple, there should be a procession happening over there. I gotta say, my love for temples came because and this is the last slide. So every summer I spent in my maternal grandparents' house, and one day in Tirunelveli, one day in that 2 months, they would take me to the Nellaiappar Temple, and I was very fortunate that it always happened 1 or 2 days after the Ther festival had finished, because you could see all the silver vahanas over there. I don't even know whether those silver vahanas are still there, but for a young boy to see these magnificent silver Nandi and the peacock and the kili. I remember Kantimati Amman has one vahana which is a parrot. One of the most beautiful examples of metal work, and most of these are in silver, and it's dazzling in that color and the crowds and everything. It was an unforgettable experience. I'm really happy that I could share that temple experience with you today. These two books are very important. Uma Maheshwari's MPhil thesis was on the temple. Some of that is in English. This is a temple publication that came out in the 1940s. Both of them are available. But the person that I should truly thank is this gentleman over here. He's a young boy called Gomati Shankar. Actually, he should have done this presentation. But the disadvantage would be that he wouldn't have finished it in 1 hour. He'd have taken 5 hours to do this. Yeah. But the advantage would be he'd have spoken from the heart. It really gladdens me that in temples like this, I mean, it's one thing for us to do all this and say, wow, wow, good. We're all sitting here in the city. But it's another thing for people to actually live there, go to the temple literally every day. And I mean, when you see him in front of Kantimati Amman, whatever I've done is only 1%. Yeah, he really, it comes from his heart. And what I truly admire about him, he never says no to a question, right? 80% of the stuff that I did came from here, right? But if there was 20% that came from here, it's because of Gomati Shankar. And he's such a fund of information on the temple, very active on Facebook and all that. And he's one of the people who's really trying to document and keep, there's a lot of other problems, right? Officials, priests, whether they're keeping tab of the old ways of doing things. He and a couple of other volunteers do a very, very good job of trying to keep everybody accountable, to keep things the old way as much as possible, and keep, having little fights about how, for example, one of the things that he's fighting about is not having too many shops inside. It's a shame that a lot of the Somavara Mandapam, that side is full of shops now. So he's trying to get these out. So more power to him. He really helped me for this. So thank you very much for Shankar. So, yeah. So just before Shivratri, hopefully you've got a nice idea of how the temple functions, what you can see. We could have spent a little bit more time on the music of the temple. We could have spent a lot more time on the inscriptions. And we could have certainly spent a lot of time on the festivals. Maybe all of you should go there and then come back. And then one of you can stand here and do that part of the talk. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes.
You know what question I'm going to ask?
No, I've not noticed the games, Vinita. I think you should go there. Yeah. It's time you do that. Yeah. Haven't seen the games on the floor, but surely there'll be a lot. There should be more. Okay, have I? Okay, good. Okay. Glad I did that. Okay, good. Yeah.
Reason why the profusion of games there? I mean,
I think, maybe I should have mentioned it. I think the beauty of the Nellaiappar Temple, like I said earlier, it's not one king's work. It's a lot of it is like the Vadamalaiappan Pillai. I have no idea who he is. Some local chieftain, landlord, no idea. But building that 300 feet by 30 feet stone building, amazing job. So a lot of people over there, even today, you go to the temple, you won't find that much of VIP darshan and stuff like that. Ordinary people, and surprisingly now, in the last 5-6 years, a lot of people from North India. It's caught on. You go to Rameshwaram, then you do Nellaiappar Temple, and then you head back to wherever you're from the north. Yeah. So now and all, there's lots of crowd, there's queues and all that stuff. I have to get permission from somebody, sneak in and all that. 5 years, 6 years back, nothing like that. You could walk in whenever you wanted to. Very free. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
So, when we went to the Rameshwar temple, I was horrified by the paint, everything is pink and blue.
Yeah.
This is not that.
No, they have not done the painting yet, thankfully. Yes, thankfully, they haven't done it. Yes. Thankfully not. Yes.
I saw that, that circular image of the thalams. It would be wonderful if we can document it. Maybe you can arrange for that. Yeah. From Intact, we're documenting paintings around the country. Some of them are already in publications. Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan, they've been documented.
It's not a painting though.
No.
It's just an inscription.
Yeah, whatever it is. But I think it's important to document that. That is one thing. Then you spoke about the Kerala connection.
Yes.
So one, of course, is the proximity.
Of course.
And that mandapam that you showed in woodwork, I think has a lot of Kerala influence.
Good, well.
Perhaps the craftsmen came from there because they are very good at working with wood and joint free,
Yes.
without nails and all that. So perhaps it's one of those that is again worth documenting.
Definitely.
And
Not just that, but there are about 7 really fabulous doors in that region. And any of them can get destroyed. And it's not just the doors, it's also those iron finials that they have on those doors. Absolutely amazing. Ramadesam, Manarboy, stunning stuff. You've seen them, Gauri? Yeah, you've seen them when you did your tour over there. Stunning. Did you see stuff like that?
And just on this, aside on the Kerala connection, Shankar's ancestors apparently used to walk across from Tirunelveli to Kerala,
All right. Okay.
selling goods before they became whatever industries they started. They used to sell goods walking across. It was in the vicinity, but the Western Ghats were in the way, but they climbed and climbed down. So that's
And a lot of
just
I don't know whether they came up in Nellaiappar Temple, but places like Arvar Nagari and all was under the Nambudiri control during Markanda's last time.
It's at the foothills of the Western
There's a lot of
Ghats.
connection with
Yeah. And although you did say a lot of it is arid, a lot of it, they call it the Switzerland of Tamil Nadu.
That,
So
the upper
there
regions
is,
of Tamil Nadu.
there's,
But you see
it's
what
all
is
very,
today Thuthukudi district. Tirunelveli is Thuthukudi district,
yeah,
very
yeah.
That the bulk of the region is from that region.
that of course. And just one more comment. Sorry if I'm taking time. You spoke about the Nataraja and the Prabhavali. Of course, the Prabhavali with the fire elements gives it support, but it's also said to be a frozen moment in time when Nataraja is spinning around. So that's why his locks are, spread on either side, and that can only be represented if there's a Prabhavali supporting it. So that could be an iconography that developed for that purpose. So it's part of the dance tradition. So, any other questions?
I think why don't you say a few words about this now? We really have such a honor to have you here today. Let me put that slide up.
Actually, I don't know much about what is seen in that, but there are these 5 angas: Laghu, Dhrutam, Guru, Plutam, Kakapadam. So it's Laghu can be 4, and then Guru is 8, Plutam is 12, and Kakapadam is 16, the count. And they have different, Kakapadam means the foot of a crow. So actually they show it like this, like this, like this, and then like this, the action that they do. So you have talas with 128 counts called the Simhanandanam, for which they use all these 5 angas. So how they have put it in this, it's maybe a mridangam expert or somebody who understands this would probably able to do. Maybe. And I have just one thing to add. You say Nellaiappar in Sanskritam is Shali Vatishwarar. Shali again means a kind of rice. So related to Nellaiappar, it's the
other word is used is Venuvananada. Venuvanam meaning bamboo forest.
Bamboo forest, yeah.
Actually, when Sikil Gurucharan and I did a tour, he was quite excited about it. And I remember just that one part, those two levels alone, he actually did a quick demo. The problem at that time was this paint has gone now. It's just granite, and there's no light in that region. So with those torches and that, it was very difficult to see it. But I think it's definitely worth a little bit more thought and research.
Very interesting.
I've never seen, in all my experience of epigraphs, I've never seen a talam pattern drawn. We have notes. We have notes on what to say, how to say, but nothing like this.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. This was really very interesting.